Don't say anything. That sounds crazy, right? You've done nothing wrong. You want to be helpful, cooperative, a good citizen. You want to look the officer in the eye, explain your side, clear up this little misunderstanding in 5 minutes and get on with your life. But here's the terrifying truth almost nobody realizes until it's too late. The single most dangerous person in that interaction isn't the cop. It's you. Because the words coming out of your mouth could destroy your life faster than any handcuff ever could. So why do we instinctively do exactly what ruins us? And what are the magical few words that would have saved everything, if only you'd known them before opening your mouth? Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you are going to understand something about police interrogations that most defense attorneys wish their clients knew before they walked into the room. And once you hear this, you will never look at a traffic stop the same way again. Imagine it's late Friday night. You're driving home, maybe a little tired, music low, headlights cutting through the dark. You glance in the rearview mirror and your stomach drops. Red and blue lights. Your heart starts hammering. Immediately your brain starts racing. Was I speeding? Is my brake light out? Did I accidentally drift over the line? The officer walks up, flashlight in your face, and asks that simple, terrifying question. Do you know why I pulled you over tonight? What do you say? Most people start talking. They apologize. They explain. They guess. And that very first answer is where this whole thing starts to go off the rails. But here's something strange. The officer already knows why they pulled you over. They're not asking for information. So why are they asking? And what are they really listening for in your answer? This changes everything, because that question isn't about gathering facts. It's about gathering evidence against you, right from hello. Here's the psychological trap that catches almost everyone. You feel guilty. Not of a crime necessarily, but just awkward, nervous. You want to fill the silence. You want to seem respectful, transparent, like a good person who has nothing to hide. So you start offering up information nobody asked for. I was just coming from work. I probably had a little too much coffee. I might have been going a little over back there, I'm not sure. Stop right there. In that single sentence, you just handed that officer something incredibly valuable. You gave them a confession to a vague crime. Speeding, maybe reckless driving, maybe distracted driving. You don't even know the exact speed, but you just admitted to violating the law. And now, that admission is written in their notebook forever. Not because you're a criminal, but because you were being nice. But the reality is completely different from what most people believe. Most people think if they explain themselves, they'll get a warning. Be polite, get let go. Be honest, earn respect. That logic works at a coffee shop when you spill a drink. But it fails catastrophically in a police encounter. Because police work isn't about fairness in that moment. It's about building a case. Every word you say is a potential puzzle piece, and you just handed them the corner piece for free. Let's look at an actual case that made legal history. A man named Wayne Chen was stopped for a minor traffic violation. He was polite, nervous, and when the officer asked if there was anything illegal in the car, Wayne laughed and said, "No, of course not, just a little weed for personal use." In a state where it was still completely illegal at the time. That one casual sentence turned a fix-it ticket into a drug charge, a court date, thousands in legal fees, and a criminal record. Wayne wasn't a dealer. He wasn't a bad person. He just said the wrong thing. And the entire trajectory of his life changed because of 4 words. Just a little weed. So here's the question I want you to really sit with right now. If a cop asked you right now, "Is there anything I should know about in the car?" what would come out of your mouth? Would you crack a joke? Would you get defensive? Would you say something you think is harmless? Because almost nobody talks about this part, but police are specifically trained to ask questions that sound casual, but are actually legal landmines. Questions like, "Where are you coming from? Have you had anything to drink tonight? Do you mind if I take a quick look?" These are not requests, they are tests. And then something unexpected happens in the minds of most innocent people. The more innocent they are, the more they talk. Think about that. A guilty person knows they need to be careful. They've watched crime shows. They're on guard. But an innocent person thinks, "I have nothing to hide, so I'll just answer everything openly." And in doing so, they create contradictions, nervous stutters, inconsistent details, and statements that can later be twisted into probable cause. Innocence doesn't protect you. Silence does. Let me introduce you to a concept that every lawyer knows but almost no civilian does. The right to remain silent is not automatic. Yes, you've heard it on every cop show since you were a kid, but here's the terrifying loophole. You have to actually invoke it, out loud, clearly, unambiguously. If you just stay quiet and stare at the officer, they can argue in court that you were being uncooperative, that your silence was suspicious, that a reasonable person would have denied the accusation if they were truly innocent. There are actual Supreme Court rulings on this. Silence alone is not protected. You have to speak up to shut up. That's the mind-bending contradiction of American law. So what are the magic words? You need to know them before you ever see those flashing lights, because in the stress of the moment, your brain will freeze, your mouth will run, and you will say something you regret. The magic phrase is this, delivered calmly and respectfully. Officer, I respectfully decline to answer questions, and I am invoking my right to remain silent. That's it. That's the shield. But almost nobody says it because it feels rude. It feels guilty. It feels like you're admitting you have something to hide. But that feeling is a lie your panic brain is telling you. Now let's take this to the next level because this is where it gets really dark. What if you're not in a traffic stop? What if you're at home and detectives show up at your door? They'll be nice, maybe even friendly. They might say, "We're just talking to everyone in the neighborhood," or, "We just want to clear things up, you're not a suspect." That is the oldest trick in the interrogation manual. And it works because it preys on your ego. You want to be the helpful witness. You want to be the person who solves the case. So you invite them in. You sit on your own couch, and you start chatting. And 45 minutes later, you've somehow talked yourself into being a person of interest. This actually happened in the infamous case of Brendan Dassey, featured in the documentary Making a Murderer. He was 16, low IQ. Police told him they already knew everything, they just needed him to confirm. They said he could go home anytime. They said he wasn't in trouble. And after hours of talking, without a parent or lawyer, he gave a confession that was later proven to be physically impossible. But he still went to prison for nearly a decade, because he talked. Not because he was guilty, because he talked. This is why defense attorneys have a dark joke they tell each other. My best client is the one who got pulled over, handed over license and registration, and then said absolutely nothing else. Because that client didn't give the prosecutor any ammunition. No nervous rambling. No, I was only going a little over. No, I had one beer 3 hours ago. No, you can check the trunk if you want. Nothing. Just silence, compliance, and then a phone call to their lawyer. But wait, doesn't refusing to answer questions make you look guilty? That's the fear, isn't it? That's the voice in your head screaming, "Just explain. Just clear it up. Don't let them think you're hiding something." Here's the psychological anchor you need to grab onto. Police are not judges. Police are not juries. Their opinion of your guilt in that moment does not determine your future. What determines your future is the evidence, and you have the power to not create more evidence against yourself. You cannot talk your way out of an arrest, but you can absolutely talk your way into one. Think about the most famous case of someone who said nothing. After the Boston Marathon bombing, the suspect who was captured alive, Johar Tsarnaev, was read his rights, and he invoked them. He stopped talking immediately, and guess what? It didn't make him look innocent. But it also didn't make his case worse. His lawyers controlled the narrative. He didn't give any rambling explanations that prosecutors could pick apart on cross-examination. He didn't create contradictions. Silence didn't save him from conviction, but it prevented additional charges and preserved his appeals. For an innocent person, silence is a superpower. Let me pause here and ask you something personal. Think back to a time you regretted saying something. Maybe to a boss, a partner, a friend. You opened your mouth and immediately wished you could suck the words back in. That feeling? Multiply it by 1,000. That's what a police interrogation feels like when you realize you just gave them a statement full of small mistakes that now look like big lies. And here's the gut punch. Once you say it, you cannot unsay it. You cannot withdraw a statement, even if you were tired, scared, confused, or pressured. The recording exists forever. The officer's notes exist forever. And in court, your words will be played back in a calm, quiet room, stripped of all context, and made to sound like a confession. So what do you actually do? Let me walk you through the exact script for a traffic stop. You roll down your window. You keep your hands on the wheel, visible. The officer says, "Do you know why I stopped you?" You say, "Officer, I'm going to exercise my right to remain silent. Here is my license and registration." That's it. If they ask, "Do you know how fast you were going?" Same answer. "I'm exercising my right to remain silent." If they say, "Well, I'm just trying to help you out here," you say, "I appreciate that, officer. I'm still going to remain silent." If they threaten you, if they get angry, if they say, "Only guilty people refuse to talk," you do not engage. You repeat the phrase. You remain calm. You wait. And here is the most important psychological shift you need to make. You are not being rude. You are not being uncooperative. You are simply declining to participate in your own prosecution. And the law, the actual written law, is on your side. The Fifth Amendment to the United States Constitution is not a loophole for criminals. It is a fundamental protection for every single person, guilty or innocent, because the founders understood something terrifying. They understood that in the heat of an interrogation, even an innocent person can be tricked, exhausted, or intimidated into saying something that sounds like guilt. Across the pond in the UK, the rules are different, but the principle is the same. In England and Wales, you have the right to silence under the Criminal Justice and Public Order Act 1994. But there's a dangerous twist. If you stay silent and later rely on something in court that you didn't mention to police, the judge or jury can draw an adverse inference, meaning they can ask, "If you had this explanation, why didn't you tell the officers back then?" That doesn't mean you should talk. It means you should have a solicitor present before you say anything. In the UK, your first words should always be, "I want a solicitor," not "I didn't do it," not "let me explain." Solicitor first, words later. Otherwise, the same trap exists. You talk yourself into a corner, and the adverse inference becomes a conviction. Let me give you a real example from British courts. In the case of R. v. Argent, the court ruled that if you remain silent when questioned and then offer an explanation at trial, the jury is allowed to ask why you didn't speak up earlier. That's dangerous. But here's the key. The danger only applies if you actually have a defense. The solution is simple. You say, "I will answer questions after I have spoken with my solicitor." That statement cannot be used against you. It shows you're being cautious, not evasive. But just sitting there mute, that can hurt you in a British courtroom. So the script changes slightly, but the golden rule remains. Do not give a substantive answer to any question until a lawyer is physically present. Now let's talk about the biggest lie people believe about police interactions. They think their charm will save them. They think if they're likable, funny, respectful, the officer will let them go. And sometimes that works. Sometimes you get a warning. But you are gambling your future on the mood and personality of a stranger who has the power to ruin your life. Would you gamble your house on a coin flip? Then why gamble your freedom on whether Officer Johnson had a bad cup of coffee this morning? The only safe move is to stop gambling. Shut the game down. Invoke your rights. Call a lawyer. But this video isn't just about traffic stops. It's about the casual conversations you have with police when you think you're just a witness. If you see a crime, if you're at a party that gets broken up, if someone in your apartment building is under investigation, the police will want to clear things up. They will say you're not a suspect. They will say they just need context. And then they will ask you to write a statement. And in that statement, you might accidentally place yourself at the wrong place at the wrong time. You might get a date wrong, which then looks like you're lying. You might describe something that contradicts another witness, which then makes you look involved. The solution? "I'm happy to help, but I want to speak with a lawyer first." That's not an admission of guilt. That's an admission of intelligence. Let me tell you about a woman named Amy. Not her real name, but a real client story from a public defense attorney's blog. Amy was at a party where a fight broke out. Someone pulled a knife. Someone got stabbed. Police arrived, and Amy stayed because she wanted to help. She gave a full statement about what she saw. The problem? Another witness said the fight started in a different part of the room. Amy's memory was hazy because she'd had 2 drinks, so her statement and the other witness's statement didn't match perfectly. Police didn't arrest the person with the knife that night. Instead, they charged Amy with making a false police report and being an accessory after the fact. She spent 2 years fighting charges for a crime she didn't commit. All because she stayed. All because she talked. All because she tried to be a good citizen. The actual perpetrator walked free. Amy's life was nearly destroyed by her own helpfulness. You see the pattern now, don't you? The system isn't designed to reward cooperation. It's designed to gather evidence. And the easiest evidence to gather is the words from your own mouth. That's why every police interrogation training manual teaches officers to keep suspects talking. Silence is the enemy of an investigation. So they will use every psychological tool, flattery, intimidation, false sympathy, fake evidence, even outright lies, to keep your jaw moving. In the United States, police are legally allowed to lie to you during interrogations. They can say your friend already confessed. They can say they have your DNA. They can say the security camera caught everything. They can say all of that even if it's completely false. And then they watch your face. And they wait for you to say, "Oh, okay, well, I guess I was there but I didn't mean to." Boom. Confession, arrest, prison. All based on a lie the officer told you and a truth you never should have spoken. So what do you do when they lie? You do nothing. You say nothing. You invoke your right to silence and you ask for a lawyer. You let the lawyer handle the lies. You let the lawyer expose the manipulation in court. But if you're sitting in that interrogation room alone, without a lawyer, you are fighting a trained professional with zero rules, unlimited patience, and a tape recorder. You will lose. Not because you're guilty, because you're human. And humans want to be understood. Humans want to explain. Humans want to fix misunderstandings. And that desire, that beautiful, normal human desire, is exactly what they are counting on. Here is the hardest truth in this entire video. You might be completely innocent. You might have an airtight alibi. You might have proof you were 1,000 miles away. And still, talking to police without a lawyer is a catastrophic mistake. Why? Because you cannot control how your words will be written down, remembered, or presented in court. You cannot control which 3 seconds of a 2-hour interrogation will be played for a jury. You cannot control the prosecutor's closing argument when they say, "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the defendant said X, Y, and Z." Does that sound like an innocent person to you? Control is the illusion. Silence is the reality. So let me close every open loop right now. The phrase you never say to cops is any phrase that fills the silence with explanation, apology, or information. I was only going, don't say it. I had 1 beer, don't say it. You can search, absolutely do not say it. The only safe sentence is the invocation of your rights. I am remaining silent and I want a lawyer. That sentence is a force field. It stops the evidence gathering cold. It forces the police to either arrest you with the evidence they already have or let you go. And if they arrest you, your lawyer will have a much easier job because you didn't hand the prosecution a recording of your own voice to use against you. Reflect on this for a moment. Every single person watching this video has the constitutional and human right to remain silent. But that right is like a seatbelt. It only works if you actually use it. And most people never click it because they don't think the crash will happen to them. But the crash isn't a conviction. The crash is opening your mouth when you should have kept it closed. So here is my question for you in the comments, and I genuinely want to read your answers. Have you ever talked your way into trouble with police or watched someone else do it? What did they say? What happened? Share your story below, because every story teaches someone else what not to do. Before you go, remember this. Cops are not your enemies. Most are honest public servants doing a difficult job, but their job is to gather evidence. Your job is to protect your freedom. Those 2 jobs are not the same, so be respectful, be calm, be cooperative in every nonverbal way. Hand over documents, step out of the car if asked, follow lawful orders. But do not be a source of evidence, do not be a witness against yourself. And for the love of everything you value, stop saying anything beyond those 8 words. I am remaining silent, and I want a lawyer. Write them down, memorize them, practice them in the mirror until they feel as natural as breathing. Because one day, in a moment of flashing lights and a pounding heart, those words might be the only thing standing between you and a nightmare you never saw coming. Speak wisely, stay silent, stay free.